at this point, you should be familiar with the different type of connective tissues that go from liquid structures, that are in the blood to almost solid structures in the bones. And you should know that there are, independent of this huge variation, you have three key structural components that are cells, fibers, and also the intercellular substance or ground substance. And now we're going to move into the classification. And in the classification, we will talk about two main categories. That is the embryonic, and then we will move into the mature connective tissue. And in the mature connective tissue, you will find a lot of groups. Okay, so I'm going to stop the video here, and later I will start with the classification. As the connective tissue is so complex, I'm going to divide it in these two sections. In the beginning, I'm going to tell you that in the embryo we have the mesenchyme and the mucus. Yeah, so we're going to talk about those. That will be less than 5 minutes, very few slides, and then we will move into the mature connective tissue. And here we will talk about so many things. Yeah, these are just some examples: tendon, blood, bones, cartilage, and there will be more. Okay, so later I will just focus on the mature connective tissue, and there will be a lot of information. So let's start with the first one, with the mesenchyme. To start talking about the mesenchyme or embryonic mesenchymal, here your textbook give you a sectional view of a developing embryo. So in the embryo, here what you are going to have is a semi-fluid of intercellular substance, and there it will contain undifferentiated mesenchymal cells. And here you have two slides. One of the magnification is 300 times. Let me do it again, 300 times, and here 1,000 times. So here we zoom in. And when we zoom in, we can see the three main components that we found in the connective tissue that we have talked before. You find here, for example, here you see a nucleus, yeah, and here you see also in the third one here, what is surrounding here, it will be ground substance. And here, these red lines here that you see are fibers. And the same thing are happening below. I don't know if you can identify the nucleus again, super easy. You can identify it. So let me show you an example. This will be the nucleus, this will be the nucleus. Fibers, it will be here, and the white area that is surrounding everything will be the ground substance. Okay, so I told you all this information, but I haven't told you what is the function of these unspecialized cells. So the idea is that these unspecialized cells, so you have a mesenchymal cell, yeah, you have this mesenchymal cell, and they will start differentiating, yeah. As I said, they will become fibroblasts, and the fibrocytes, they will become chondroblasts and then chondrocytes. So they have the potential to differentiate in all the other cells types of the connective tissue. Okay, so let's recap all the things that I told you. But before that, I will delete all these lines. So just to recap, here you have the reticular fiber, here I show you have the nucleus, here you have the ground substance, and below that, exactly the same thing. In 4, you will find the ground substance. The fifth one will be again the nucleus of the mesenchymal cell, and there you find the reticular fibers. And I remind you, these are the three components that you will find in the connective tissue. So I told you that these mesenchymal cells are inside of the semi-fluid intercellular substance, yeah, and that the location, as you can see here, they are found in the embryo, and the function is mainly differentiate into all connective tissue cell types. So we just finished the mesenchyme, and now we're going into the mucus that is also an embryonic connective tissue. So to talk about the embryonic mucoid or mucus, this connective tissue, here you have the classical picture that you will see of the umbilical cord of a fetus. Why? Because this is when you find this type of connective tissue, this type of embryonic connective tissue, that the main function is to support, yeah, this umbilical cord. And what you have here in the number one, yeah, is not a surprise for you, that is an epithelial surface of the umbilical cord. And then in the other three components, what you find is cells, ground substance, and fiber. Okay, so it's the same thing. So second, you see these lines that are representing the most common fiber that we find, that is collagen. Then in three, you find here they're pointing at the nucleus of the most common cell that we always talk about, the connective tissue, that is the nucleus of the fibroblast. And finally, in four, the white region, super easy, is the ground substance. So remember, the this uh, uh, embryonic mucoid connective tissue is a viscous jelly-like intercellular substance containing fibroblasts, as I showed you in the picture, and they are also known as Wharton jellies. Okay, and the location, very easy. I already told you that is the umbilical cord, and the main function is support. Now I'm going to show you the picture or your textbook that show the again the real picture of the umbilical cord. So as usually, if you want, you can practice and stop the video, or I will give you the answers right away. So let's start. So number one, what do you see there? Yeah, in red, you will see the fibers. In white, you will see all the things that are surrounding. So you will see the ground substance. Then in purple, here you see something that looks like a nucleus, and it will be a nucleus of what? Of a fibroblast. Very easy. Now in red, they show you all these fibers, that those are collagen fiber. And now here you're going to observe the same images, but in 200 magnification. So here, number 5, you see it is pointing at the red region. So here it will be again a collagen fiber. Here you see the purple region that we already talked about. So you see all these purple things that are here are nucleus. So in this staining, they are purple and they are showing the nucleus of the fibroblast. 7, the white regions that are covering everywhere. Again, it will be the ground substance. And here, super easy, on top of the connective tissue, what you will find the epithelial surface of the umbilical cord. Okay, I think this was pretty easy. And with this, we finish the two type of embryonic tissues. So at this point, you should know that in the embryos, you have mesenchymal cells that are going to produce all these specialized cells that you will find in other connective tissues, and those are called mesenchymal cells. And then you also should know that in the umbilical cord of the fetus, you have another type of connective tissue that is creating the support for the umbilical cord. In the next section, I'm just going to focus on this, and I'm going to create a subdivision of many connective tissues. So just to make it simpler, we're going to forget about the embryonic, and I'm going to create a subdivision of only mature connective tissues. Now we're going to talk about the mature connective tissue, and as there are so many, we're going to talk about 13 different types, not only this semester, not only in this class, but this term and the following terms. So we're going to go from a very general one to a more specific one. So let's start. The first three type of very general classifications are: first one, the connective tissue proper; the second one, that is the supporting connective tissue; and the third one is the fluid connective tissue. And just to remember those things, if you when you think about fluid connective tissue, what tissue do you think that it is? And I know that you didn't say the blood, so perfect. because it is a tissue that looks like the only tissue that seems to be liquid. Yeah, so blood. And in addition to that, we have another one that is the lymph. And we will study those ones. So the lymphatic system we will study the next semester. Now, supporting connective tissue. And when you think about your body, what is supporting, what is supporting you when you're standing up? Your bones, yeah? So here you have one, the cartilage, and the second one will be the bones. One is has a semi-solid matrix, the other one have a solid matrix. So if you think about the second one and the third one are very atypical tissues. One is liquid and the other one is solid or semi-solid. So this is why the first one is called connective tissue proper, or this in a way that you can remember because it is actually one that looks like what we generally think about a tissue. Okay, a connective tissue. So you have two types. The first one is the loose connective tissue, and the second one is the dense connective tissue. And if you think about the three components, cells, fibers, and ground substance, the one that is loose, yeah, has the consistency of yellow. Yeah, so this means that this will have lower number of fibers and higher number of ground substance. In the same way, or opposite to that, the dense one will have the opposite. We have more fibers and less ground substance. Good. So we have gone from three types, then we went to six types, and now we are going to go to the other 13. Okay, so here in the loose connective tissue, we have three types more. Yeah, it's subdivided in three. And if you remember, loose connective tissue is the one that has more consistency, like yellow. So here, for that reason, we have the adipose tissue. Then we will study three more that are the irregular, and elastic, and that those one have more fibers. So we will talk about those. And finally, we will have two more groups that are the cartilage, that there will be three more, and the bones that they can be compact and a sponge. So in other words, we are studying 3, 6, 9, 11, and here two more, 13. So here you can see all that the mature connective tissues, they have many different types. We're not going to cover all of them today. I just wanted to show you this as a tool to study. You can also use the textbook to try to study this and remember all these different type of connective tissue. So here you can see again a list of all the tissues that we are going to study. In particular, the blue ones are the ones that could be more likely to appear in a test. The other ones might be in a test, but definitely the blue ones you will see. We will talk more extensively later or in another chapter. So keep them in mind for you to study in the test. Again, I'm a big fan of your textbooks, so here you will find excellent exercise that I describe the different type of connective tissues, and if you click in all of them, they will tell you the parts. They will tell you all the information that you need to remember for the test. So if you have time, go and give it a look, and you can use it to study. Okay, so now that I already gave you the map, now we're going to start using it to explain all the information. So we're going to start talking about the connective tissue proper, and we're going to continue with in particular, we're going to study the loose connective tissue, the one that have lower number of fibers and higher number of ground substance. So is less dense, yeah, is more, the consistency more like yellow, and we're going to start with the first one, that is the areolar connective tissue. Now we're going to talk about the areolar connective tissue. And to that I show you this picture of the skin. Why? Because in the skin you have this wonderful section, yeah, the subcutaneous tissue where you have the areolar connective tissue. Yeah, and here you can see, remember, cells plus fibers plus ground substance. Yeah, so cells here, fibers here, and in yellow, sorry, in white you see surrounded everything the ground substance. So here is, if you see there's little fibers and there is more ground substance. And this is called areolar connective tissue because there is a lot of space, yeah, ample space between the fibers. The fibers are far from each other, and that those fibers are filled with this open space is filled with interstitial fluid. Uh, in addition, I told you this is the most common, most abundant type of connective tissue. Why? Because in addition to be surrounding all your skin, it can be also found between other organs, muscles, the superficial fascia, and it can um, and it's very important because in addition to work as a glue, it can give nutrition, yeah, to the skin, and it can also work as a cushion protecting other organs. Okay, so a lot of information, but remember that just key information like that this is one of the most abundant type of connective tissue. Remember that I told you that it is called like that because its fibers are far enough apart. So you see it like that in the picture. The fibers, these lines that are in purple there, they are far from each other. So they leave ample open space, and in that space is filled with interstitial fluid. I also told you that the location uh, is between organs, also the muscle, the superficial fascia, and as I show you here in the schematic portion of the dermis. And in addition to working as glue, binding skin and muscles, yeah, in addition to that, it's very important for nutrition of some tissues and also to avoid friction between different organs. So let's together identify some of the components of the areolar connective tissue. So here in one, you see a fiber. And what type of fiber is a type of fiber that uh, contribute to the structure of the tissue, and it's possibly the most common fiber of the connective tissue. Of course, it will be the collagen fiber. Here, uh, number two here, of course, is the most abundant cell of the connective tissue, and that is forming the fibers, and in this case, it's the fibroblast. The third one here, you saw that this one was a longer fiber. This one is a thinner fiber that you can see it here. They are the purple here, purple thin fiber, and those fibers are elastic fibers, and they provide elasticity and resilience to the connective tissue. Number four, again, this thick fiber that you can see here, that is the same one that we saw here in one. So this is a collagen fiber, just at different magnifications. And number five here, yeah, so if you see, you have different colors of fibers. You to identify this, you have to be an expert, or you have to have different stainings. But the textbook help us to identify it. So this is a reticular fiber. They are located in the stroma, and they provide a structural support too. And they are not only located in the areolar connective tissue; they are found in other connective tissues. Finally, here you can see these atypical cells here. These weird cells here, those are mast cell, and they play an important role inducing the inflammatory cascade. And so they are located almost everywhere. In particular, they're very important underneath the skin. Why? Because they are always guarding our body from infection. The adipose connective tissue is commonly known as body fat, and it's not only underneath your belly, yeah, it also accumulates in many different regions. So, for example, many internal organs surrounding them, you have adipose tissue. So here they show you that even in the heart, you have some reserves storage of fat there. So here in your textbook, they are looking that you see how specialized is this tissue. So if you remember a few chapters ago, we talked about the nucleus. So this is the nucleus. Here, surrounded that, you will have the cytoplasm, and here you will have the cell membrane. Yeah, so this is what generally we see when we think about a cell. And here you will have multiple organelles. However, if you see these cells, the most prominent structure that you see there is this number 3. Yeah, and this is not the nucleus. This is not the nucleus. The nucleus will be this tiny region. Why? Because it's so specialized that most of the cell has a giant vacuole that is filled with different type of lipids. Yeah, so this is the most prominent structure of the body. So remember, if you see here in purple, that will be this will be the cytoplasms. Surrounding that cytoplasm, you have the plasma membrane. So here they are showing you. Sorry, here is the plasma membrane. Let me draw it again. Uh, Let me try drawing it again. Here is the plasma membrane. Uh, and this third structure is the fat storage area, the white region, and this white region is a lipid, okay? It is full of lipids. For one, that small purple structure is the nucleus, and finally, uh, blood vessels are important to transport different nutrients. So if they need to go on, they need to come here. Blood vessels will be there. And so I told you that the adipose tissues, they have a very prominent structure that are these giant vacuoles. Yeah, these giant vacuoles that are full of different lipids, and they look like bubbles. And in addition to that, I told you at the location. Of course, you have lipids, the adipose tissue in the hypodermic layer, yeah, underneath your skin, especially in some parts of your body like the belly, hips, yeah, different ranges, but it's also around organs like the heart. And now functions. So we talked before about this. The functions of the adipose tissue are protection, insulation. So you're going to have an insulation for cold, for example, for the temperature. It will be support and energy storage. Yeah, so this is why all this body fat accumulate, but if you need to release it, so it will be there. So this is why animals before winter they accumulate so much body fat, and then when they come back they lose all that during hibernation because they need it to survive during winter. Now let me show you uh, a picture of the adipose tissue of taken from your textbook. So here is pretty easy. It's almost the same thing that the schematic. So here you have these structures that look like bubbles that are in the middle. Yeah, here you have the white one here that I'm trying to point. Yeah, all that region you know is a vacuole. So in the beginning, what you're going to have outside is the cytoplasm, yeah. And in number 2, you will have the plasma membrane. So I'm going to draw it here is in blue, and I'm trying to paint it here. Yeah, that blue region will be the plasma membrane, and you can see it also in the staining, more clear in the 200 magnification. You can see all these blue regions. There will be the plasma membrane. Number 3, super easy, will be the fat storage area where you have the filled vacuole. The nucleus will be these very small structures here. Here, remember that those cells are specialized to storage for energy store, for storage of lipids. And here, this is the only weird thing there, is these blood vessels that remember you need to be transporting all this energy, all these lipids inside and outside of this adipose tissue in case that you need it. Now, remember there is more information in your textbook that you can read about this, and I just try to summarize as much as I can. So please feel free to give a look to your textbook. So we're finishing with the loose connective tissue. Remember the one that has a texture more like a yellow, that because it has fewer fibers and more ground substance. And we talk about the areolar, that it has a lot of gaps, and is the most common type. We talk about the adipose tissue that have these very weird cells, that are mainly a giant vacuole with a tiny nucleus, and the back will have lipids. Now we're going to move into the reticular, that is the last example of loose connective tissue. Okay, here to talk about the reticular connective tissue, your textbook gave you an example of a lymph node, and maybe you don't know what is a lymph node, and we will cover that in the next semester. But just remember this: the lymph nodes have this, it's like this element, this structure thing that you have in your kitchen that is filtering. If you're cooking potatoes, you put the cooked potatoes here, and all the water will go here. Why? Because you have this huge mesh of things, yeah, very tiny, that are filtering things. Same thing is happening with the lymph nodes. You will have all these fibers, or these reticular fibers, that are going to filter foreign substance such as cancer cell infections, and you have a lot of immune cells that are going to be ready to find those foreign substance and all those like infections of cancer cells, as I said before. Now let's talk about how the lymph nodes are able to form this mesh or this web-like network of fibers. Yeah, so they have these red cells. You see them there. The blue dots is the nucleus, and the blue lines are the reticular fiber. That, as I said before, they have a web-like structure. And here, so for that reason, here is the nucleus and the reticular fiber. And in addition to be involved in the filtration process in the lymph nodes, it can also be found as a framework, an inner framework of solid organs and the bone marrow. So it can be found in many organs and in the bone marrow. So the function will be support for some of this organ, filtration for the lymph nodes, and every time that you talk about bone marrow, you need to talk about blood production. So the reticular connective tissue is involved with those things. So I told you that these red cells that you saw in the schematic, they secrete a web-like network of reticular fibers that they can use to form the framework of solid organs and bone marrow. And so the organs could be the spleen, the liver, and the bone marrow. And of course, the lymph nodes that we talked before, and the functions. So it could be support, filtration in the lymph nodes, and blood production in the bone marrow. Now let's again to go and see the picture that your textbook offer you. So this picture is very clear what is happening there. So in red, what you're going to find the nucleus of the reticular cells, while in blue you will see all these fibers that are there. So remember here, this is a reticular fiber when you magnifies 640 times, so all those blue things. And here you can see the nucleus of a reticular cell, and you have many here, yeah. And finally, there you will find all in 400 magnification. You can see again in the lymph nodes all these fibers like this one, and all over the place. So we finish all this loose connective tissue. Now we're going to continue talking about the connective tissue proper, but now we're going to talk about the dense connective tissue that have, remember, more fibers and less ground substance, so it will be more, the structure will be look more solid, yeah, less like yellow. And the first one that we are going to have is this regular connective tissue. Here you can see two images, one of an scanning electron, so scanning electron microscopy picture. Yeah, it's a type of microscopy. And here you see a schematic to help you to make your life easier. And here, remember, is a connective tissue, but this one is a dense connective tissue. So what are you going to have? A lot of fibers, yeah? A lot of fibers and a little ground substance. So if you see there's fibers and there's very little space. So it's the opposite of the areolar connective tissue. So, and if you have a lot of fibers, you need cells that produce those fibers. So of course, you're going to have a lot of fibroblasts. And all these fibroblasts will be constantly producing these fibers. And if you see the fiber, they have something in common, yeah? They are arranged in a sing they are arranged in regular parallel rows. Yeah, so in both you see that they go in parallel, and this allows them to have strong and flexible connections along the orientation of the fibers. Okay, and when is this useful? Is useful in a structure like your tendons, ligaments, and aponeurosis. And we will talk about what are all those aponeuroses, not only in the beginning, at the end of the slide, but we will cover that in a future lecture. Okay, so to summarize, I told you that the dense regular connective tissue has lots of fibroblasts. I also told you that as it has lots of fibroblasts, it has a lot of collagen fibers that are arranged in a regular parallel rows. And the function is that as they have so much collagen, you have a strong flexible connections that is along the orientation of the fibers, and they are located in three main regions. In the tendons that have connections between bones and muscles. Mhm. In the ligaments that are connection of bones, let me do it again, bones, bones to bones, and finally the aponeurosis that it make connection of muscle to muscle. Okay, now I'm going to show you a picture of a tendon with an schematic that show you in more detail all the different structures. Okay, so here you might have a bone because here there is a tendon, and so here is the muscle, and it's creating a connection. And to make that, you need to have a strong, dense, regular connective tissue. So here, what you see, most of that region, you see pink areas, and there is a staining that show you tiny purple regions and some white regions. So of course, the pink areas will be the collagen fibers that, remember, is connective, dense, regular connective tissue. So you have more fibers. The white regions, it will be the uh, ground substance that they will be lower, and the purple regions in this staining, it will be, those are the fibroblasts that if you want to see them bigger, you need to have even higher magnification. And besides that, in the 200 magnification, you can see that all these collagen fibers that are there running in parallel. So we finished the regular connective tissue, and it was very clear that there is more fibers and less ground substance, and that it can be blah, 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 blah. So here you can see again the picture of the skin, because in addition to this subcutaneous area, that you have areolar connective tissue. In the dermis, so in the region above, you will have another type of connective tissue that is going to be a dense but irregular connective tissue. So I will delete this. Why? Because I wanted to show you that here in pink you will have a lot of collagen fibers, but they are not in parallel. Yeah, they are not running in parallel. Some of them will be in parallel, and some of them will go in another direction, and other ones go in another direction. So this is why you have things that look like that. Okay, so this is the difference with the previous tissue, with the regular. Here they are running up. Those collagen fibers are running in a random pattern. So let me delete this. And now let's keep talking. So here I told you that you have collagen fibers, but they are running in different directions, so you can have different views of these collagen fibers. Here, you are going to have a blood vessel. That is very important because you have to have to receive nutrients, and also some of those nutrients will be very important to keep alive the epithelial above. And in addition to the blood vessels, you're going to have a lot of fibroblasts, because you produce still, although they are disorganized, you have a lot of collagen fibers. And this can be found in so many places, yeah? So they are supporting and bringing together different structures. So for example, the skin, to bring together all these connective tissues to the muscle. This connective tissue work as a glue again. And in addition to that, you can find it in muscles, in the deep fascia, and in kidneys, and many different structures. Okay, so let me show you all the things that we talked in this slide. First thing that I want that you remember is that still there is a lot of fibroblasts that will produce a lot of fiber, because this is a um, um, dense connective tissue. So here you see very little ground substance, but you will see that the collagen fibers are arranged in a random pattern. Okay, that is very different. In addition to that, I show you that the function of this dense irregular connective tissue is first support and bind a structure together to work as a glue between the different layers of the skin and the muscle. And the location I only show you in this slide as an example, the dermis, but I said to you that you can have it in muscles, yeah, and we will talk about later what is that, kidneys, and in future semester we will talk about lymph and other structure, and there are many. Now let me show you again a picture of your textbook. So here we have been talking, remember, still about this section that is the dermis. And here, pretty easy to observe that these one are fibers. And here we are seeing a longitudinal section of this collagen fiber. Well, if you see into, yeah, and all these things that you can see here, reddish sections that you can also see here, are again collagen fibers, but in a transverse section. Okay, so very clear. Now in this schematic also they show you this structure that I think is also pretty easy to determine. This staining is very pretty, very easy to know that this is a blood vessel. Yeah, that you have all these layers that are surrounding the blood vessel, that there is a lumen. Yeah, so it's pretty easy. And here you see, of course, in the staining, nucleus, nucleus, and here you see that also a nucleus, and here they already told you that this is the nucleus of a fibroblast cell. Okay, with this, we just have one last example of dense connective tissue. And we're going to move into the last example of a dense connective tissue that has, remember, a lot of fibers and less ground substance. So this will be the elastic connective tissue. So here you can see again our friend the heart, and in addition to have connective tissue here, adipose tissue, in addition to have here muscles that are here in this case is cardiac muscles, you're going to need to have other type of connective tissue here. And here in the walls of large arteries, so remember you're going to need to, you have your, the heart is pumping a lot of blood, yeah, and has a lot of power, so it needs to be uh, and that material, those arteries need to be very elastic and very stretchy, but at the same time resistant. So to do that, we will need to have a lot of fibroblasts. So all the dense connective tissue that we have talked, you remember, all this dense connective tissue will have lots of fibroblasts. But instead of having a lot of collagen, here what we are going to have is elastic material. So what we're going to have is a lot of elastic fibers. And this is not the only structure in your body that it will need that. For example, organs like lungs, vocal cords, and I already told you walls of large arteries require this elastic material. So you need, every time when you have flexible, flexibility, elasticity, and stretchy structures, you are going to have connective tissue. Okay, so let me try to delete this. And now I'm going to tell you that to summarize, I tell you that we are going to have lots of fibroblasts, and they, in this case, they're going to secrete different type of fibers that they will be elastic fibers. And the location of those fibers will be first in walls of large arteries, as I show you with the heart, but also lungs and vocal cords. And finally, I show you that I talk about that. What is the function? So I give you the example of the large arteries, but the same thing happening in the lungs and the vocal cord. You need to have flexible and stretchy and elastic structure that allows them to fulfill their functions. So now I'm going to show you again the picture that of the image that your textbook provide about the elastic connective tissue. So here you can see a sectional view of the elastic connective tissue of this artery that is very important, that is the aorta. You know, here you see that this definitely is dense connective tissue. Why? Because you don't have a lot of ground substance. However, you will need, this is, remember, LM is light microscopy. Here only you are going to start observing things more or less clear when you go to a magnification of 400. And here what you observe is, again, the elastic material, all these fibers that we talked before. And also you're going to have the nucleus of a fibroblast. Okay, and with this we finish the elastic connective tissue.